Well, Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, recently made his thoughts known about how he really feels about what the SEC is doing in bringing this litigation to Ripple himself and Chris Larsen. He gives his opinion on Twitter about exactly how frustrated he is and what he thinks the rest of us should feel as well. This speaking directly to the rest of the crypto community. So I'm going to give my thoughts on his reaction and what that could signal as far as the SEC versus Ripple. Also, Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank is talking about Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto markets, as well as regulations of Bitcoin and stablecoins. I'm going to give you his thoughts and predictions on the price of Bitcoin when he thinks that the next Bitcoin bull run will actually occur, which of course affects all cryptos, and just how much money he thinks will be flowing in. Hey everyone, my name is Randy. Welcome back to the Late Night Grind, and right now on this channel we are covering the Ripple versus the SEC case, but I'm also covering cryptocurrency news, investment markets, and personal finance. So if any or all these topics interest you, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, join the Late Night Grind community. Also, if you do a couple things, I'd appreciate it. Smash the thumbs up button, and of course watch this video all the way to the end. If you do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Alright guys, let's jump into it. So let's first start off by talking about what Kevin O'Leary has been saying about Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin, as early as 2023. That's actually his prediction for the next Bitcoin bull run. Now he was actually in a discussion talking about this and what could possibly trigger the next bull run. Of course, there's a lot of macroeconomics that are going to affect it, in my opinion. However, in his opinion, it more comes down to regulation, down to what they're doing down in Washington, D.C. Now, he specifically mentioned this one thing that could trigger another bull run, and that is regulation of stablecoins, specifically the Stablecoin Transparency Act. He's been saying that this could be the biggest trigger in unlocking a wave, essentially floodgates opening for major institutional money flowing into Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market. So the Stablecoin Transparency Act, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's basically a law that, if it would get signed, means that stablecoins have to not only be audited, but it actually has to have the dollar equivalency in its reserves for which it is minting stablecoins. In other words, what Tether and other stablecoins are supposed to be doing is, when they are given $1, and of course one stablecoin, one Tether is exchanged for that dollar, they need to keep that $1 or the equivalency of in their reserves. So this would actually make all stablecoins actually have to hold some sort of fiat dollars in reserves, or specific government securities, or specific regulated buyback agreements for which the government would actually have to approve. So in other words, basically, it all has to be transparent. It would all go through audits, and it would all, and it's all to make sure that these stablecoins have in reserve what they say they do. Now, of course, this has been the talking point of Tether for the greater part of probably 8 years now, is that people saying that Tether, is that because there are tens of billions of Tether out there, they don't believe that Tether actually has tens of billions of dollars in reserves. Although they may not have the cash, they say they back it up with paper investments, things like that. But this act, the Transparency Act, would actually make this all public. So if that were to happen, Kevin O'Leary says that the major floodgates, the institutional buyers, could then be opened up to investing in specifically Bitcoin, which in my opinion, that would really flood out to the rest of the market very quickly. Because he says what that's going to do is allow specifically things like sovereign wealth funds and big investment house managers to actually open up and put as much as 50 basis points, which is basically 0.5%, up to 1% of their funds, or the funds that they manage, into Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, because right now they don't do that. Most of them are not allowed to do that. So once that would happen, he says, listen, there could be upwards of $1 trillion headed into the crypto market, and thus helping to send this Bitcoin price skyrocketing. His prediction, his anticipation is that $1 trillion of institutional money, you could see a $60,000 Bitcoin, even $100,000 Bitcoin in short order. Now, he's talking about this happening in 2023. And also in this interview, in this discussion with Kevin O'Leary, he also mentioned some of the cryptos that he personally holds, that and through his company, which of course is Bitcoin, Ethereum. He also mentioned ones like Helium, which I had mentioned on this channel almost a year ago now as one to keep an eye on, and it's still a very interesting one in my opinion, as well as Solana and another one called Pollen, which Pollen and Helium are, of course, are both telco initiatives, which a decentralized telco utility. Those could definitely be some interesting ones to watch for the next bull run. So nonetheless, you can connect with me on Twitter and let me know your thoughts on what Kevin O'Leary says, because he seemed to be coming around on the crypto space over the last few years, especially in the past year, not just because he's invested into it, but because he does see crypto and specifically Bitcoin being a huge part of the financial sector in the coming years. And in my opinion, I think he's absolutely right. All right, so now let's talk about what the CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, says about what the SEC is doing and why we should all be concerned. So recently, Brad Garlinghouse was on Twitter and he was responding to somebody who was talking about Brad Garlinghouse's colorful language that he's been increasingly using to discuss the case against the SEC and what he thinks about the SEC. And he was basically replying to that person and saying, listen, my outrage has been growing as the litigation goes on. Now, this is probably not much different for those of you who hold XRP or are at the very least interested in this case and why the SEC is actually attempting to, of course, overpower cryptocurrencies, which is basically what Brad Garlinghouse is insinuating. So here's his actual tweet. He said, my outrage has grown as the litigation has unfolded. There's no recourse. There is no consequence to those that brought the lawsuit. The SEC's pursuit of a policy objective isn't about a faithful allegiance to the law. It's about power. Now, we've been covering this case for a long time, and we can clearly see that what the SEC is doing is a power grab. They don't want to give up their control over cryptocurrencies or potential control over cryptocurrencies. Now, a lot of people speculate it's because they would then have unlimited targets to go after. But of course, the CFTC says they should have control over the crypto markets. But I did just read a headline the other day that says the CFTC, that says people in the crypto space shouldn't expect a light hand from the CFTC. However, there's a lot of people within the CFTC that of course can marry the crypto space with traditional financial markets significantly better than what the SEC has shown that it's interested in doing. And Brad Garlinghouse finalized that tweet by saying there's no regard for those companies and people that this approach has harmed. We should all be outraged. The SEC has clearly forgotten that the government works for the people. Now, the SEC is a little bit different because remember, they're supposed to be protecting investors, and well, they haven't been doing a great job of that recently, other than the high-profile cases that Gary Gensler likes to trot out there, like saying that they're suing Kim Kardashian for her role in a crypto promotional scheme. And A, we already knew it, and B, nobody cares. All right, guys, I want to invite you to follow me on Twitter because I turned off comment section on this channel, at least for the time being. So if you want to have a discussion with me there, make sure to click the link in the description, as well as several other high-profile XRP Twitter accounts that you definitely want to follow for some of that breaking news. All right, guys, I really appreciate you watching this video all the way to the end, for smashing that thumbs up button, and as always, I'll see you guys on the next video.